Hey, and welcome back to Bubbly and Blazers, the podcast where we dive into the challenges, wins, and crazy moments of business girlies. I'm your host, Shayla, and joined with me is the incredible Ainsley. And today we're talking about something that many of us feel in the workplace, and that is unfortunately more common for women in a male-dominated field, but nonetheless, imposter syndrome.
That's right. Today we're tackling something that sneaks up on many of us. It's that little voice in your head that whispers, you don't deserve this. You're not actually that good. Whether you're stepping into a new role, starting a business, or just trying to grab your own success in life, imposter syndrome can hold you back in ways you didn't even realize. So grab your bubbly and let's get into it.
Yeah, I love that like deep whisper that you had because I think it's so true. It's that like that voice inside your
Little
head,
voice.
that little monster.
Yeah.
Maybe I guess for those listening, and I mean, I think at this point most people know or have heard imposter syndrome, but maybe let's do a quick definition of what that word actually means.
Absolutely. So this means the persistent inability to believe that one's success is deserved or has been legitimately achieved as a result of one's own efforts or skills. So essentially, you're like, "Oh, I got this position by accident." That,
Yeah, like you don't feel
I don't know.
worthy of it.
Yeah, you're like, "Oh, they must have made a mistake."
Yeah, wasn't the degree I got, wasn't all the years I put in experience, wasn't the
Yeah,
connections I've built or the projects I've succeeded in.
it's they randomly pick me
They
and
picked
they
the
might be
wrong Ainsley.
disappointed in me. You can just hear my own innermost thoughts.
One thing too, like in researching this a little bit, I didn't realize there was different types of imposter syndrome that people have now kind of like narrowed it into. So when I was looking at it, showed that there's five kind of common types, I guess, shall we say. One being the perfectionist. So if it's not perfect, you feel like you failed. Another being, they called it the superwoman or superman. I have to work harder than everyone to prove that I belong. Third being natural genius. If I don't get it right the first time, I'm a fraud or I don't know enough. The soloist, I have to do everything myself or it doesn't count. And then last but not least, the expert. So having that belief that I'll never know enough to be qualified.
Yeah. These are some crazy things because you'll never know everything.
Totally.
It's proven that, doing stuff in a collaborative environment, if it's a good collaborative environment, is way more successful because different people bring different things to the table. And we've talked about this before. It's like sometimes things don't go right the first time. It's like it doesn't mean, although we tell ourselves that, it's like it doesn't mean that it's like the end all be all. You can try again, you can do other things, you can go in a different direction. So, um, but yeah, at the same time, it's like everybody's kind of felt this way and kind of told themselves these kind of things, right? So it's really complicated.
I also like, I'm just so interested too in this, like I feel like my grandpa, for example,
Hmm.
never in his life, I mean, maybe he had these like small feelings, but like I don't think they're talking about imposter syndrome way back, right?
Hmm.
And so
Yeah.
it's also interesting to me that this has become something so huge. Like I know it's something that I struggle with a lot.
Hmm.
And a kind of where my brain goes is why? Like why do we
Yeah.
feel this pressure that we can't be who we are, or why do we feel like we're constantly like behind, or like what are we trying to get to? Like what is the race here? Like what is the
Such a valid point. Truly.
so I assume you've also probably struggled a bit with imposter syndrome. Can you give us like
Some examples.
example or yeah, tell us about your
Yeah,
experience.
for sure. No, it's tough when you kind of come into a new workspace,
Mm.
or even working with different teams on different projects. You're like, hey, like we could do this, but it's like, I don't really know. Like, I feel like that's like a common thing for me.
Mm.
Um, But
Especially relevant to where you are now because you're going
yeah,
through school.
I'm very much at like the beginning of my journey. I don't have like a ton of expertise.
Right.
There are some things where I would say I feel more confident in, but there's lots of things where it's like I'm like, oh, I don't know, like I don't really know what to say. But I
Which
think,
like right there, sorry, I'm totally gonna interrupt you.
yeah, do it.
Right there, like that you're already second guessing yourself. Like
Exactly.
how many people have gone, completed a first year in university or college, a postgraduate degree? How
Yeah.
many people have had the experience working that you have? How many people
Hmm.
have done the volunteer opportunities that you have? Like you have a ton of experience. So for you to sit
Yeah.
there and be like, I
I don't really
don't
know.
really like.
Yeah, exactly. And for me, like a big thing that I always try to like embody is like, well, let's just try. Like, I feel like that's how I was raised,
Yeah.
and it's just kind of like a personal thing for me. I'm like, let's just try. So it's like if you think about it, it applies to that situation. Like instead of being like, oh, I don't really know, it's like just try, like give your opinion, give your thoughts, give your preferred course of action, and then if people don't like it and they want to go in a different direction, that's okay. But at least you like tried and you can hopefully learn from it, sort of thing. So I feel like that's something to kind of think about going forward.
I think that's a great lens. It also like reminds yourself to shift the focus on that, like it's not personal, right?
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
it's not because they don't take your opinion, it doesn't devalue you as a human being or mean that your opinion is not correct. It could be applied in the right setting, but maybe it's
Yeah,
just not the right option for them in that moment.
exactly.
Yeah,
100%. How
that's
about
a good
yourself?
example. Yeah, every day. I feel like I just started a business recently. So I'd say this is probably my biggest thing right now that, struggle with.
Yeah. Biggest theme these days.
Yep, yep. I think a great example is like, um, I'm putting in the work. I'm putting in the effort. I'm doing the reps. I'm building a network. I'm doing all of the things and checking all the boxes. And I've got good momentum and I feel really confident and really good in what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
But then, yesterday I went for a walk at lunch and it was a beautiful day. I was having a great time. And then all of a sudden, this one little thought popped into my head is like, well, why don't I have this yet? Or
Yeah.
why aren't I here yet? Or this person is doing this. Like, how come like, and then all of a sudden this little spiral starts going.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's hard to stop that spiral. So yeah, I feel like this is something, especially since starting a business, is very relevant. And like you said, like I'm constantly putting myself into situations and rooms with people that I aspire to be one day. So when you're in
Yeah,
those rooms of people who have done more or have more experience or who are, perhaps making more, it's very intimidating. It's easy to like not think that they once started where I am.
exactly.
So yeah, I feel like this conversation is very relevant to both of us right
This is a
now.
therapy session, truly.
Yeah.
But I think just thoughts on what you just said. It's like, yeah, we have to kind of take it as like everything's a learning opportunity and everybody started somewhere and
Mhm.
it's like, okay, we might not be making the progress we wanted to be making today or this month, but it's like as long as you're kind of working away at a pace you can handle, then great. Like we just have to learn to be a little less competitive and a little more just like content with what we're accomplishing,
I also
I
think, yeah,
think.
you're totally right. And it is like it's about perspective, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
I met with a friend who I hadn't seen in gosh, probably like 8 years. We met in university and she went off, she moved to Australia for a bit and then came back. Anyways, we're living in the same city now, so we grabbed coffee and of course, catching up on everything. And I was telling her the last kind of like 2 months, everything that's gone on. I guess three now. It's almost February.
Ah,
And
journey.
yeah, I was like, yeah, I just, I'm feeling I was having like a down moment and I was like,
Yeah.
I'm just feeling like I'm not doing enough. And she literally looked at me and she was like, are you kidding me? She's like, you just told me so much that has
Yeah.
been going on. So I think too, it's perspective, right? Like what, like making sure that you're realistic with yourself as to like what the actual timeline looks like for something and how much
Yeah.
you're really putting in and being kind to ourselves in that way. Like, oh my goodness.
Truly, truly. I feel like perfectionism kind of plays like a role in it, right? Like it's just
Certainly.
some people aren't like that. Some people are. They're just like,
Hmm.
oh, like it needs to be, you know, running at 1,000%. And I feel like I kind of tend to fall into that category.
Hmm.
Um, and I think it can be a good thing at times, being a little more detail oriented, but for things like this, it can sometimes be a little bit of a thief of joy because, when you can be just content with something, you're like, oh, that person's doing it better than me, or I could be doing better. I could be doing more. So I don't know. That's
Certainly.
something to work on.
Yeah, I love that thief of joy. Totally
Mm.
is.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, so okay, so obviously I think this is something that a lot of people are going to relate to and a feeling that we have. So what are some ways you think that, we can shut that down or even reframe it? Like you said, going back to our quirky interview questions, but how do we turn this weakness into a strength?
So true. Um, I think like anything, you just have to take those negative moments and instead of spiraling with them, kind of nipping it in the bud
Mhm.
and just saying, you know what, like, let's just take a deep breath here. Am I doing my best? Am I happy with where I'm at? Like, more or less, I don't have to be ecstatic. Do I want to continue in this path or go in a different direction? Okay, let's do it,
Mhm.
kind of thing. And like, just try to spin it more positively and not get sucked into the negative of it all.
Definitely. I
That's
was
what I would
list
say.
I like that. I was listening to this thing recently. I don't remember where I heard it. Probably on Instagram because I'm not super active on TikTok, so I see them later on Instagram like an old
Reels.
grandma. Um, and it was saying for your mind to, when you're feeling a strong emotion, for your mind to completely rid of it or shift or change, you have to actually physically move your body.
Yeah.
So, yeah, when you're going into those negative spirals, like what can you stop or change what you're doing? If you're sitting, can you get up and do like 10 jumping jacks? Or
Mhm.
if you're laying in bed, can you go get up and grab a glass of water? Or like just like find those little
Yeah.
things too that you physically can do while you're also, kind of acknowledging the thought, but then like you said, shifting it into, well, maybe I'm not top entrepreneur in all of Canada for 2025, but I
However,
have read 3 books that I will help
love.
grow my skill set.
Okay, amazing. Exactly. Yeah, just changing your environment. Exactly. And
Hmm.
just, I feel like my therapist says like splash water on your face, which is like
Mm.
not always possible. Maybe you're at work, full face of makeup, but yeah, like I don't even just like stepping outside and just like having a deep breath of fresh air, I think could be, you know, potentially helpful for some people. I like to do that. That's a big one for me. It's like, okay, let's just like you said, let's just take a walk, take a deep breath here.
Yeah, phone
Yeah.
down. Just,
Yeah,
yeah, take a moment for yourself and check in.
absolutely.
I think too, like the other thing I know, and we're kind of, I think, alluding to this is like social media. I
Yeah,
think
of
like
course.
I think everyone is aware that this plays a huge role in, I think, a lot of people having problems with imposter syndrome. And
The rise
going
of it
down those,
too,
yeah, going down those
like you
negative
said.
spiral holes or spirals. Um, but yeah, I mean, social media, right? Like reminding ourselves this is the highlight reel and
Yes.
what everyone's posting, whether it's Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, these are the highs, and no one's gonna post a video of them,
Crying in their bed.
yeah, burnt out.
Truly though.
Yeah, so reminding ourselves that not everyone has it figured out, and that, giving ourselves that grace that, yeah, like you said, just trying things and seeing where you get with it, being kind to yourself in that way.
Absolutely. So some people say with imposter syndrome, it can cause them to just kind of withdraw and not take certain opportunities because they don't feel ready. Um, do you think that there's any times when like certain opportunities should be avoided, or should we always just like jump in and try, kind of on that same trying track?
That's a good question. I definitely am like you, just do it.
Yeah,
Like, if an opportunity comes your way and you don't feel ready for it, just say yes and figure the rest out later.
it's true. It's true.
I again saw this quote somewhere. I'm gonna butcher it, but the gist of the quote was that imposter syndrome has more is about okay, let me try this again. Imposter syndrome is other people seeing your full potential before you can.
Okay.
So, and
Oh
I
yeah,
think,
okay.
yeah. So, if someone presents you an opportunity like, hey, Ainsley, I want you to talk to our new coming management students about how they can use this program to grow their degree. And you think,
Mm-hmm.
oh my God, why are you asking me? I'm, maybe not the top student, which I know you are. Maybe
Clearly not.
I'm not the best public speaker, which
Yeah,
again, also obviously you are, but having all those self-doubts and then all of a sudden you say no, well, they
you've missed
picked you
out.
for a reason.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's true.
And hmm
And I think, like you said, it's like jump in, and it's like if it's not the right opportunity for you, that's not always ideal, but it's like,
then it's a
if you have
learning
to go,
opportunity.
yeah, if you have to go in a different direction, then do it.
Totally. Well, and I think too with that, like if an opportunity comes and you don't feel like you're the candidate for it, how can you then make yourself the candidate for
That's a
that
good one. I like
opportunity,
that.
right? Yeah, so using it as that learning moment, maybe before the event, ideally, and not after.
In real time. Like, okay,
But yeah,
figuring
how
it out
can
as we
you?
go.
I mean, we all are. Let's be
Truly.
honest.
So true. All right. I like that.
Yeah,
Really, I just use this podcast to inspire myself. Ask questions.
me too.
I'm
Honestly,
like,
I
that's
love
great.
your energy, just like gives me so much energy to go into my day too.
Ah, I love. So speaking of positive vibes,
hmm
I love that little segue I just put in there. Um, do we think like using like little mantras, little positive self-talk can help? Like, do you have some favorites, like little things that maybe like pop in when you're like, oh my God, panicking?
I feel like I could talk about this for like a whole day.
I love.
Um, I The last 2 years have been, I'd say, like full of some self-growth for me, both
Okay,
personally and professionally. So
love.
I feel like I've really relied heavily on finding these kind of things to rely on and finding ones that work best for me, because that's the other thing. I think certain ones will relate to certain people, and not everyone is going to find one works or they all work for
Yeah,
them.
for sure.
Um, so I do have a few favorites, and I'm going to try not to talk too much on them.
I love it.
One that I started recently that I really, really like, and especially with starting my business, is I have this journal that I do once a month. And so on the first of every month, I reflect on the previous month.
Ooh,
Yeah. And what I do with this is I reflect in a bunch of different ways. So I look at professional accomplishments. So I write down all of the things, all of the little wins, all of the things. And, oftentimes what I'll do is throughout the month, when something happens where I'm like, ooh, that was awesome, or this was a great day, I'll just jot it down. And
aw.
then on the first of the next month, I review all those and I look back and I think, wow, like here I am feeling like I didn't do anything this month. And yet I have a list of like 50 things that I actually did do.
Yeah, that you're proud of.
Exactly. And
I
then
like that.
what's most helpful with that exercise is if you actually sit with that feeling for, maybe
Ooh.
10, 15 minutes and you just feel that. Like truly take a moment to be proud of yourself for what you
Hmm.
accomplished that month. Because I think that's the other thing. We're so quick to just jump to the next goal.
Yeah,
Like, why aren't we celebrating all these little things along the way? Because they're going to become huge one day, but
truly.
we need to appreciate them for what they are in this moment.
And I think for me personally, like that kind of fires me up to keep going to the next goal. It's like, oh, that was so great. Like celebrate that win and then just like helps me to kind of be ready for the next challenge. Otherwise, it can kind of just like drag you down if you're just like constantly kind of same with that burnout situation. Like you're just constantly in a negative mindset, like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
It's not healthy.
Yeah, if you signed up for the half marathon and the finish line keeps moving and moving because you keep getting further and further down the line, you're not going
Truly.
to have enough to prepare like gas in the tank to keep going.
Yeah, you're like, oh, this sucks. Instead of being like, oh my gosh,
I
look how far
completed a
I've
half
come.
marathon.
Look how far I've come. I love
Clearly, I've
that.
been going to too many run clubs right now
I know
without
you're in
running
your
up.
running era. I respect it.
Okay, but share with me some of yours. What are some ways that you kind of avoid this, like
We've talked about this a little bit
self-talk?
during our public speaking episode because I would
Okay.
say like the same thing comes to mind. Like
Yeah.
I enter space and I'm like, all right, let's go. We've got this. Lock in. That's been one lately. Like, all right, let's lock in. We've
Okay.
got this. And I just like
Okay.
try to like pump myself up, I would say.
I love that.
Thank you.
I think we don't do that enough, really.
Hmm.
Yeah.
It's
I
very
think
important.
we're so quick to like belittle ourselves or make ourselves feel
Hmm.
small. When's the last time that you actually pumped yourself up?
Yeah. And it's like instead of like, waiting for something to happen and being like, oh my God, like thinking negatively about myself, it's like I'll just fill that space in my brain with like the pump up vibes.
Yeah.
That's the energy I try to have.
I feel like too, like taking this outside of business, like I feel like some of my best dates that I've been on are
Hmm.
ones where like, had the whole like music going, was, like
Yeah.
thinking about how lucky they are to be on this date with me. And, just like bringing that confidence in because
Yeah.
again, like I feel like another situation where it's so easy to be like, oh my God, like I wonder if they're gonna like me. I wonder if they're gonna think I'm
Hmm.
funny. I wonder if I'm gonna be as pretty as the other girls that they're dating. I wonder if I'm
Yeah.
gonna be this and that. And it's like, what does it matter? Like,
Yeah. Just
you
go
know?
in, try to go in with a good vibe and whatever happens, happens. And
Yeah, be who
it's
you
hard in
are.
practice, but it's like,
Oh, definitely.
we gotta just keep locking in on this mindset. It's
I
the way
love
to be, the
that.
way to go.
Yeah.
I love it.
No, that's so great.
All right, are we ready for our bubbly breakdown?
I think so. Take it away.
Okay. So remember to reframe your negative thoughts.
Yeah.
Maybe you need to change your environment a little bit or get in there with a mantra. That can be very helpful.
Yeah. Be detail oriented, but don't become fixated on one thing.
Yep. Always achieve, right? We're striving
Hmm.
for good things, but
Hmm.
don't be afraid to take breaks.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't want to be burnt out. That's no bueno.
No. And celebrate those successes along the way.
Yes. And don't be afraid to take up space.
Definitely step into those rooms that you don't feel like you're ready for. You are.
That's right. Yeah. Just try and prep and just do it. I
Just
love it.
do it.
Amazing slogan.
This is now sponsored by Nike also.
We wish.
No, thank you so much for joining us today on Bubbly and Blazers. If you found this episode helpful, be sure to share it with a friend who could use some encouragement. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow us on social media.
Yes. All right, business girlies. Until next time, keep your heads up. You've got this. See you next time.
Cheers!
Cheers.